They were going to offer us exclusivity. I had no idea. This company was called Salesforce.com. You're born an entrepreneur. I fundamentally don't believe that. I think entrepreneurs can be built, and I used to build businesses. Now I build entrepreneurs. We build things and then try and sell them. That's the wrong way of doing it. You almost need to sell before you build.
So I'm delighted this evening to have Simon Krystman, who I had known for many years. We worked together we're both interested in projects, local community-led projects that tackle problems in local communities, particularly for the financially excluded and social enterprises. But Simon himself I first met because Simon is a serial entrepreneur, as it were. We will get to that. But also Simon recently has written a book called The Expert Entrepreneur. Do you want to?
Oh my gosh, am I allowed to sort of plug it? Expert Entrepreneur, on sale on Amazon.
I was about to say on sale at all good booksellers and Amazon. And so we'll get to that. But I want to start off with a very simple question. Simon, tell me, what was that moment or that stage when you realized or you decided, I'm going to go out on my own, I'm going to set up my own business, and what led to that?
Okay, well, just before I get to that moment, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what an entrepreneur is. And many people think, oh, you're born an entrepreneur. So you were always, when you were at school, you were always selling things and you were involved in the tuck shop. And there's all these great stories of people being born entrepreneurs. I fundamentally don't believe that. Working with lots of entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneurs can be built. And I've almost got that as my private brand at the moment. I used to build businesses. Now I build entrepreneurs. I firmly believe that entrepreneurs can be built. And
sounds a bit like the Bionic Man, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you put them together one little piece at a time. So my story really, I've got nothing that led up to me being an entrepreneur. I went to school, university. I did biochemistry. At the end of the course, thought, I'm not really enjoying this. I just want to earn some money. Went to work for a company, for an American organization in their sales department. I wasn't selling. I was doing pre-sales, helping the salespeople prepare all their materials. And about 6 months into this, my first job, myself and the guy that started at the same time, Mitesh, we were talking about what they were selling and their process. And we said, there's a better way. There's definitely a better way than they're doing. They're reselling software and making money out of services. And there's a different way they should be doing this. So we went to our line manager and we said, this is our ideas. We think there's a better way that you can do this. You can make some more money, et cetera, et cetera. And he sort of tapped us on the shoulder and said, lads, we've been doing this for decades. We know what we're talking about. You're new to this. You'll soon learn. And we went away and we thought, yeah, they're reselling somebody else's software. We could do this. We could do this, and we could do this our way. So
I just ask you, did that idea come to you after sort of polite rejection, or did you think about that sooner? But thought, actually, let's go to them first.
No. We genuinely thought we'd be being helpful about how they could improve. I mean, that was partly what we were employed for, or we thought we were employed to help their sales process. And it was only when they rejected what we were saying that we thought, but we could do this. And that was where the idea gestated that we could set up our own business and we could do something. We had no clue how to, with no background in being entrepreneurs, no mentors or people that we could turn to.
Was that the first time you had thought about setting up a business?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. The first time. And this is back.
That's the same.
Yeah, no, it's so far back.
Back
when I had hair. So, no, this is back mid-90s. This is sort of pre-internet in terms of internet for business. And so it was something that we just chatted about, and myself and Mitesh, and it took us a little while before we made the decision that we wanted to go try this on our own.
So tell me, what sort of business, can you give us a bit more details, if you can, about what sort of business it was you were working for?
Yeah, they were a database marketing company.
Right.
They're an American database marketing company that the team that I was working within were concentrating on, at the time, there was a lot of deregulation in the utilities, water, gas, electricity. And so these utilities now could open up their services to the whole market. So Yorkshire Water could sell in London and things like that. So they were looking for new customers. So database marketing companies wanted data. They wanted to be able to target people. And the company I was working for would buy in data analytical tools, put on data and try and sell these to the utilities. And so we thought that they could do this in a more packaged route than they were doing. Everything was quite disjointed. We thought it could be a single offer rather than a mosaic of offers. So we hadn't set out to be entrepreneurs as such, but something that I've later discovered, we were looking at solving a problem. And that's one of the key aspects of being an entrepreneur, which I only discovered later. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was just,
let's do it.
There's a way of doing this.
Yeah.
And we very naively, we tendered our resignations without actually going and setting anything up.
Hold on a minute, let's go back here. Both those days, were you both single? Did you have any family commitments?
No, we were single.
Okay, and therefore, did you...
6 months after uni, just
right.
So, yeah.
And were you worried, did you have a thought, if this doesn't go well, I need 6 months' money, or I need to build up a year's money before what was your thinking? Or did you just think, I'll just go for it? Because not everyone could do this.
Yeah, no, not everybody could do this. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't really have much money at all to start with. We had our salary, our outgoings. Both of us didn't have much outgoings. We were living, back at home with our parents at the time. So not a lot of outgoings there. And we're really done, actually. We should not have done that in the way we did it. But we just decided, okay, well, let's give our notice with a month's salary, and let's set something up. And we didn't even prepare the reseller agreements that we had to. We could have done so much beforehand to have prepared to make money, but we didn't.
So tell me about the early steps. You both quit. What do you do next, or what were you doing just before you quit? Does that make sense? What preparation were you doing? Yeah. Take us through those steps.
So once we made the decision that we were going to quit, we were what we did have a plan. It wasn't just let's quit and sell something and sell this. It was, okay, well, we need to just make sure that we can set up a company and get a reseller agreement for this software. We know who the customer base that we want to go after is, the utilities. And so our plan was, we know how we're going to contact them, we know what we want to sell to them, and we know what our unique offer is. So we'd done that part of the plan.
But before that, you used to work in pre-sales, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you do much contact with potential customers? Or did your partner Nitesh do much of that?
No, we were just doing the pre-sales. We thought, we could make a go of this and do this. And this company was making a lot of money. I mean, way out of the sort of money we could have dreamt of making as pre-sales people. So we thought there was quite a lot of margin in this.
And to take me through the steps. So you've got a plan. Do you go and find an accountant? Do you go and find a mentor? How do you register? How do you just do lots of research down the library in those days? How do you go about setting up the company?
It was very different in those days to now. Now you can buy a company off the internet for £25. I don't even know what, around that, with a bank account straight off, and you can have it within hours, and you have a company. In those days, you need an accountant, and accountants were expensive, and it was a long, drawn-out process of forming a company, articles of association, memorandum, all of these things. So it took weeks to put together, and lots of money to put together with accountants a company.
And was that money from your savings, or did you go to debt for that?
No, that was that money was from our savings.
Right. That
money was from our savings.
Had you saved up a specific amount for this company, or just had saved it? You're just a prudent person, and you just...
No, it was because my outgoings weren't a lot, and nor as Mitesh's, that we still had. We've been working for 6 months,
right?
and we hadn't really spent a lot of what we'd earned living at home. So we had some money.
Yeah.
So there was a runway.
Yeah.
But we weren't particularly strategic at the time.
And what was the first step? Did you go and find an accountant and say, we need to set up a company? Or how did you go about that?
So it was finding an accountant. It was speaking to our parents. Who do you know in business? What accountants do you use? And eventually it was actually a contact through Matesh's that we found an accountant who advised us what was the right advice at the time, but was expensive. It wasn't just for free.
Right.
You couldn't do, the internet wasn't there to be able to do things inexpensively.
So you've got the accountant, you set up the company. Did you need lawyers or anything like that?
We didn't need, no, it was all done through accountants
it was done
at
through
that time,
accountants.
yeah.
And how long
Because we hadn't got contracts, we would need lawyers for contracts.
And how long did that take to set up? A few weeks, you said?
That took a few weeks, yeah.
And what were you doing during that time? Were you also setting up other parts of the company?
Well, what we were doing at that time was, and I'm glad we were, okay, we know we can get the reseller agreement. So we know what we're going to sell and what we're going to package. So we started to reach out to some of the utilities to talk to them about what we were doing.
Right.
So we were actually, right from the beginning, we were looking at sales.
And did you have any difficulty getting into the utilities?
Not difficulty getting into them, but there is a twist in all of this.
Right. You can share it?
Yeah. The twist is we were wrong. We couldn't do it.
Oh.
So we thought we could do this, and we thought our line manager was right. He was completely right in the way that people were buying and how the sales route went. So we'd left the company. We'd spent lots of money, or what was to us a lot of money, forming a company. We'd dived head on. We were confident. No, we couldn't do it.
And did you have any mentors around that time?
No.
So you just did it on your own?
So we just did it on our own. And then it was, why is nobody interested? We can get through and we can speak to people. We can speak to the right people. But why don't they want to do it this way? And why do they want it in a modular fashion?
Yeah.
And it was clear the reasons why in the end. So there was a little bit of a panic stations.
I'm sure. Where else?
Well, quite a lot of panic stations.
Took your job.
We spent a job.
You got a company. Yeah.
Had no company. So,
and you were wrong.
and we were wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was right.
So what did you do next?
So what we did next was what sort of software can we resell? Who can we sell it to? How can we use this model that we think will work? We looked at lots of ideas, but that was the one that we really focused on. How can we use this model and who can we sell it to? So we settled on something called contact management software, which is the precursor to what's CRM now, sales and marketing software. So in those days, it was a database on a floppy drive that you put into a computer, and you'd put your customers' details. It was your contact management, and there would be a diary attached to it, or really fancy stuff. And we looked at selling that to smaller organizations and providing services on top of that. But we didn't make the software. We were reselling it along with the model that we had there. So that was the route that we took. And
how long did it take you to switch to that model?
It only took weeks to switch that. All we needed to do was to find the software that we wanted to sell, to get a reseller agreement.
And just before that, how long did it take you to make a decision? Okay, that model's not working. You looked at a few other potential markets. How long was that?
Everything happened quite quickly. Everything happened simultaneously. We weren't structured in a way of just that and then tick that off and then that plan. There was a lot happening simultaneously. But I would say within 6 weeks, 2 months of realizing we couldn't make something work, we had something that we were ready to take orders from and people that would give us money for what we were doing. So it turned around quite quickly.
And how long did it take you to get your first customers?
Literally 8 weeks after.
Wow.
And the model worked quite well. We didn't now have a set market, so it wasn't as focused as utilities. It wasn't what we set out to do, but we were reselling software. We were packaging it modular with services. and we were selling it to small to medium enterprises, floppy disks on computers, and it grew reasonably quickly. I mean, we, as a reseller, well, we eventually, for that company, we became the third largest in Europe for reselling content management software. Third's not very good, but that was
Big enough.
we were big in the fourth.
And how,
We were bigger than the fourth.
how long were you with that company?
So that I was with them for about 6 years.
That's you and Nitesh together.
That myself and Mitesh together, but it grew differently. So I started off as we started to grow the company and started to scale it a little bit. I became the de facto CEO, and he was more like the COO. So but it wasn't clear cut. We're not a big organization where it's just clear cut roles. But if people asked what our job roles were, that was more how it went.
And how big did you grow in terms of staff?
So we were about 80 people, which in those days was fairly large for a software business that wasn't employing programmers.
And you were based here?
We were based in North London.
North London, right.
And we're based in North London.
And the challenge, I remember when I was self-employed, one of the biggest challenges I faced was becoming an employer, as it was. And I remember going to the HMRC, they ran courses for you.
Yes.
And I remember going to 2 different courses deliberately and asking the same question and getting 2 different answers.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, and I also felt that the HMRC were kind of treating me as if I was doing something illegal or crooked when I was just trying to employ someone. How did you go through that process of being, two, I don't know, were you a partnership or something, and then you went...
We went straight to being a limited liability company,
right,
so
okay.
straight into...
But going to becoming an employer, how did you handle that? Or did you get other people to come and do that for you?
Quite early on, we delegated a lot.
Right, yeah.
And quite early on, we decided that we would want to put a team around us. We weren't trying to make the most amount of money for us. We thought, let's build a company. So yeah. we had these discussions. We can make more money if we go and do the installations ourselves, if we cut the corners here. But we thought, no, we want to grow something here. So let's get people to be involved in sales. Let's get an office manager involved that would deal with the things that you're talking about there. Let's get some people in that would be consultants. So we ploughed any profits we were making back into growing the company at the time.
And then you say you were there for 6 years. What happens in 6 years?
Well, I slowly faded out. It wasn't just a straight cut.
It sounds though, when I'm in conversation with you, or this conversation, it sounds like you're quite ambitious. You want to grow something. There suddenly came a stage somewhere where you decided you didn't want to grow it, or you wanted to exit, or you were slowly fading out. What brought around that change of perception or ambition?
Well, this has really been the key to what my subsequent career has been as an entrepreneur. I didn't enjoy growing a company. Thought I would. I didn't enjoy the HR part of things. I didn't enjoy the managing lots of people. I enjoyed the bit I liked is when we started off and it wasn't working, and then we had to find that and make things work and sort of building it. I really didn't enjoy it when we had proper offices, and it was just
having to manage rather.
Yeah, it just wasn't fun, and then worrying about cash flow when it's a much bigger number with lots of people, and so. And that's something that became very apparent to me about business and about entrepreneurship, in that I didn't enjoy, and I don't think I was a very good business manager. The entrepreneurship part I enjoyed, but I didn't enjoy being a manager of teams of people or a company. And that stuck with me all the way through my career there. And I've never understood, and this is sort of an analogy somebody else was saying to me, is why do companies take their best salesperson and promote them into sales manager? So they're doing them almost one of the most important jobs for the company, and they have that salesperson selfish attitude, and then you promote them to running a whole team of salespeople and now not doing their sales. So I think it's a little bit like the entrepreneur. I mean, some people are brilliant at doing both, but it's taking the entrepreneur and saying, well, you're going to be the best manager.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I understood straight during that first company.
Yeah. And so you realize that. So you obviously consciously start to fade out from that company. Is that right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, are you thinking about starting your next thing, or you wait until you leave before you start your next one?
No. We had some very open conversation. Now we had a board that wasn't just myself and Mitesh, and we're talking about this, and I'm saying, look, I'm not enjoying this. And it was like, what can I do here that I'm enjoying? And new product lines, something. No, I'm sort of done with this now. And we had a conversation about me leaving the company. Still, I negotiated such that I would still have a board salary,
right,
and be on the board. So I would have my runway now to start something else up, but not being paid the salary I was being.
So you get a salary.
Yeah,
did you at some stage sell your interest and get some money for a stake?
No, not at that. So the company was eventually sold.
Yes, right.
But at that stage, no. All I did was I kept my equity,
right,
and I became a board director, like a non-exec director,
yeah,
but with a salary.
Do you mind if I ask what was your equity stake when you left, roughly?
I had 60% equity.
Wow,
I was the major shareholder in it. So.
And I know we were fast forward. Did you get rid of that when you sold it?
Only when we sold the company.
Right, fine, okay.
Only when we sold the company did
yeah,
that.
Right, great. So tell me what happens next. You realise that actually I love setting stuff up.
Yeah.
I like the fact that our company's doing well. I'm going to, you negotiate your way out, as it were. Yeah. You've still got some money coming in.
Yes, I've got some money coming in, so I'm not that high risk.
Exactly.
Kid.
Yeah, exactly. And therefore, and let me ask you something, very going back, at any stage in that first company, did you get a mentor in at any stage?
No. Why?
Very, very interesting. Because
this is what I do now. Why?
Yeah, great. This is why I ask these questions. Tell me what happens next, your next venture.
Yeah, so next it was, now I'm going to go and form another company. What am I going to do? They've got the whole world out there. And I went through a catalogue of ideas that didn't work, and some really crazy stuff. And I spent a little while in San Francisco. So I thought there's a new thing called email marketing with HTML, all this like high-tech stuff. I love my technology. And I've heard that they were doing this out there. And I thought, well, I'm going to move out to San Francisco. I'm going to set up a company, an email marketing company, and I'm going to grow it from there. And I arrived in San Francisco in 2001 at what was called, you heard of the dot-com boom. I arrived almost the day when it switched to being the dot bomb. Everything. So the conversations before with people, they talk about, what the stock options they had. Now everybody was, do you have a job? It had literally, lucky Simon. So I arrived at the time that it was just going down with a crazy idea. So it's almost like trying to sell snow to Eskimos. HTML emails that were invented out there, an Englishman trying to set a company up to sell them. So crazy sort of ideas like this, but I didn't think were crazy at the time. Yeah. Just lots of ambition to try and set up another sort of tech company that I'd be interested in. And so I went through a series of those sort of ones that just didn't work.
And so you set something up, tried it, didn't work.
Yeah.
Set something up, tried it.
Yeah.
But you still had this sorts of comfort of some salary coming in. Yeah.
Yes. So I had and I probably also, actually, while I was out there, just reminding you, I probably made my biggest financial mistake of my career while I was out there, because I was still representing, by the way, the company was called Chaotix that we formed because it was completely chaotic. So I still had my stake in and a board member of Chaotix when I was out in San Francisco, and I was still looking at what was happening with all the contact management things, and this new thing called CRM was coming along. and a startup in the area that I was talking to. We started having conversations about them selling their new CRM, internet-enabled CRM software in Europe. And I loved it because now you're not plugging floppy disks into machines. You're using the internet to store all your contacts.
Is this a time of dial-up internet? Or
it was dial-up internet. It was dial-up internet, but suddenly it was distributed computing. It was real state-of-the-art stuff. Still take you forever to get your contact list coming up over the dial-up, but it was I loved it. The only problem was this startup there that wanted us to be, I was representing Chaotix on that and trying to do the deal, wanted, they were going to offer us exclusivity, but they also wanted us to not be selling anything competitive to them. So before we were selling a suite of different contact management, and that would have killed our whole business. But I sort of wish we had, because this company was called Salesforce.com, and I had no idea. So in hindsight, great thing. We've been an incredible deal, but yeah.
So obviously you go through a number of things. What's your next, if you like, success or earner, as it were?
So there were a few things around the data field that was database marketing. So but using database I set that up with a group of people, and I did it in a way that I could do the entrepreneurial part, the setup, but with people that I knew could manage the business when it would, if it would reach a stage where it would start to grow.
How many people did you link up with at this early stage?
And so there were 4 of us that started. The business, but we grew quite quickly in terms of number of consultants, and it was very much in that period where there's lots of consultants. There was all the legacy stuff from, I don't know if people remember the Y2K, all of that. Showing my age here, but it was basically a consultancy business on data,
right?
And that actually led to another business downstream that was probably my most successful exit, which was to do with data itself. But in between, I had a few other interesting, let's say, technology businesses.
So you've gone, coming up to speed now, or come up to date, how many companies successful companies, do you think you've created and exited from?
So 8 companies I've exited from that I made money out of.
Yes.
But it's been, I've started an awful lot of companies that have just gone absolutely nowhere. And it's also been a big mistake starting companies rather than I've learned that the last thing you do is start a company, whereas I thought it was the first thing you did. So there's been lots of learnings along the way. Hence this brilliant book.
We'll give it a chance. Ken talks about that. I'll try to lead into some much more smoothly and more subtly than that. When I met you and I were looking at projects in local communities, and what was very interesting was that you were very interested in community empowerment at one stage, but also you were you had become a mentor. And this is interesting, given what you just said earlier about whether you need a mentor what stage did you decide to become a mentor, and were you wrong when you didn't need a mentor, or do you think certain people do need a mentor? Lots of questions, I know, sorry.
Yeah. I only really got involved in being a mentor actually quite a while after we met.
Right.
I mean, we'd met and I was doing crowdfunding, had a crowdfunding platform, but also a mixed crowd patch with another startup I was doing called You Invent, where we were putting 3D printers into schools.
That's right, yes.
We were looking at solving the problem of why don't girls get into STEM as much as boys? And one of the things we wanted to do was make it really interesting. There was a lot of studies around if girls can get involved at 9, 10, 11 years old into finding these subjects fascinating, then they'd go on to progress in STEM. And 3D printing was a really good way of getting the kids to, you get them to scan each other and they'd print off a picture of each other, you get them to make things. And it was, we wanted that to be part of we'd love it to be part of the curriculum, but we would never get that sort of thing done. But we, out of school clubs. So we were going around schools and seeing if the parents would crowdfund 3D printers for after school clubs. And that was when we got involved.
Then tell me, how did you get into mentoring?
So the mentoring side came when we were, very British startup in a pub. So I'd another failed startup called Harley Street World, where we were looking at, a group of us were looking at, rather than people coming into Harley Street for their consultancy, of offering the consultants to do consultancy online and do triage and all of that. So
medical
consultancy from Harley Street. Didn't work out. It was during the 2012 Olympics. We had people like Daley Thompson as our sports ambassador, and it was a bit of fun, but it didn't quite go where we wanted it.
Were you ahead of the time? I mean, were you ahead of your time, or did you think it wasn't really a viable business?
No, I think it was a viable business. It wasn't funded the way it should have been funded.
Because it's just what you say now. Some of you may know in the Lords, I'm a shadow health minister. I meet lots of health tech companies, and I met one today which does exactly that, online consultations.
Yeah,
and it's obviously it's a bigger thing now.
Yeah,
and lots of people with private healthcare. So were you sure?
We weren't too early. There's a lot of interest from the clinicians in doing this. You're sort of offering these consultants who have fairly big egos anyway to be famous. And so they all like, no, I'm the best heart surgeon in Harley Street and I'm the best and you want me as your... So it wasn't a problem getting content. It wasn't a problem. We just hadn't set ourselves up with enough funding to make the thing fully work. And it fell apart. But one of the people I was working with that was working on the filming side of it, we were, a couple of months later, we were having a pint and we were talking about startups and startups fail and who are the great startup teams. And when we're talking about great startup teams, we could only think of the American startup team. So we could Google with their two and the two Steves in Apple, and we couldn't think of any British startup teams. Richard Branson was the go-to sort of entrepreneur, but we couldn't think of actually startup teams. And we were like, why aren't there startup teams? And all we could think of, particularly as we were having a few drinks, was British comedy teams. And it came back to the Two Ronnies, which was, we were talking about Two Ronnies, and there was a sketch they did, which was, imagine how funny it'd be if there was 12 of us. And we were going, why don't we put a project together? We'll call it 12 Ronnies, and it'll all be about putting startup teams together. And in the teams, you'll need a mentor, and in the teams, you'll need so what does it look like, these startup teams? And that's where the idea sort of started to have mentoring as part of the early stage of starting a business.
But interestingly enough, it kind of contradicts something you said earlier, which is, who needs a mentor? Do some people need a mentor, do you think?
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Well, I clearly did need a mentor. I just didn't realize I did. Hence,
right.
I mean, I got pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, often people say, well, what's the most important sort of skill or factor in being an entrepreneur? And it's luck. There's many other skills, but luck is sort of the overriding.
But there's an element to that, isn't there? Because, it's a bit like winning the lottery. You won't win it unless you buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So you tried, didn't you?
So we tried.
Yeah.
But if I'd have had a mentor, let's say when I was working for that American database marketing company and look at leaving or just starting out there, they almost certainly would have guided me not to be quite as stupid to jump without doing a little bit more research than I had done. The thing about startups and particularly novice founders, the way I when starting out, is we don't know what we don't know, and it's
the unknown.
It's so much, and so having somebody that's been there, even if they're not from your industry, it's almost somebody that you can get on with and you can talk to, but has some experience.
So, Simon, you've come neatly to the book because you've put a lot of your own experience into this book, Expert Entrepreneur. Tell us briefly about the idea in the book, and then we'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah. So the reason I put this book together was in my mentoring. So I mentor not only within the 12 Ronnies Foundation, where we help people start businesses, but I mentor at various universities. So Anglia Ruskin London, an example of one of those that I work quite closely with. And there's an organization called GCEC, Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers, which is really an American organization. It puts a global on the front of it, and I went along to, they have these conferences, once a year conferences, and I went along, and so there's all these leading universities there from the States and their entrepreneurship centers, and we're talking about how we're teaching entrepreneurship and what we teach. And it turns out that we pretty much teach exactly the same things at the early stage of entrepreneurship. We actually use the same tools, the same business model canvases, all of these actual tools that we're using. And I thought the Americans would be far more advanced, home of entrepreneurship, but no, they teach what we teach. They use the same tools. So sharing best practice, I realized that actually we also recommend the same books. So there's a great book called The Mum Test, or it's American Mum, MOM. Test. So we recommend the same books. But there was no particular framework book that we could use to teach entrepreneurship. We were all just using our knowledge, and we were doing the same things. And so I thought, let me try and put something together that distills all the things that we teach. And it was basically a distillation of the things that we teach in the order we're going to teach them. And the idea was we could use it as a framework for teaching entrepreneurship courses. So it's been constructed in such a way that term one, you teach this. These are the subjects it goes through in the first parts, all the way through from entrepreneurial mindset through to other parts of how you actually validate business ideas, which is my area now of specialism within entrepreneurship, is validating the business ideas. So I focus on the part that says, well, is there a customer need for this? Because most of us, as I've done most of my entrepreneurial career, we build things and then try and sell them. And that's the wrong way of doing it. What you really need to do is find an audience, have an idea what you're trying to solve for them, and then work with the audience to make sure you've got something they really need solved. So you almost need to sell before you build. So it's the other way around. So I work on how do you collect data, because I've always been data oriented. How do you collect validation data to say that there's a customer need for this and that they'll pay? So is it desirable? So if you can find that out first of all, which you can. So for an example, weak validation would be that it's still validation if people are signing up to a wait list because they want to be part. So if there's a wait list for this book and lots of people were putting it down there, I hadn't written the book, I just made the cover, and so I'm going to write it, which is the sort of thing you would do in idea validation. Then you go, well, there might be a demand here. There's a lot of people now on the wait list. You could go further for strong validation and pre-sell it. So crowdfunding is a good example of pre-selling it. So if 1,000 people put their money down to buy this book as a pre-sale, there's a customer demand because the data says it. So my area of expertise is in this idea validation part, but the book is more about all the different aspects of entrepreneurship, including idea validation. But the twist for it for me is writing it in the age of AI, because AI is just the best tool now for entrepreneurs. It's such a game changer, bringing an AI team to your startup. And so it's been constructed in a way that you can now use each part of the end of each chapter. The questions are the sort of questions you put into your AI now for them to start to build out the framework of your business idea. So that's where I've sort of written it. I've written it for the entrepreneurship educators to teach, but to also provide to their students as a framework. So it's almost like my target audience is people working in entrepreneurship centers, and they're entrepreneurs, they're students, but it could be sold for general public.
So, Simon, that's been absolutely wonderful, and thank you very much for taking us through that journey. One thing I should have said at the beginning, I apologise, that these meetings this series is co-sponsored or co-owned by the Institute of Economic Affairs, the Vinson Centre at the University of Buckingham, the Buckingham Enterprise Innovation Unit, and we're also bringing in very soon St Mary's University in Twickenham as a partner of these talks. But let me now open up to the floor, and please put your hand up and also say who you are. Can I just see how many people have got questions? Got Sam back. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I work here at the Institute of Economic Affairs as a head of education, so I might use my staff privilege to get the first question. Simon, thank you so much for coming in. I've been binge watching a lot of Dragon's Den, so it's fantastic to hear from people like you and everyone else here. I guess I have two questions. So as a think tank, we advocate for a lot of deregulation and low taxation and those kind of things, like free market policies. I guess I'd be curious to know, do you have any personal experience of, I guess, being held back or making your entrepreneurship journey harder as a result of government intervention that didn't feel necessary? And then the second point is that Saeed touches on a lot, is about helping those in need without the state. Do you think there's something that we need to be doing to bring more entrepreneurs into the philanthropic sector?
Yeah, well, brilliant question from my point of view. One, the first part, being held back government-wise, was more with the FCA.
We had that with a venture that you and I were doing together, didn't we?
Yeah, but also another one called Ideas Patch,
right.
Where I was looking at angel investors crowdfunding. The crowd were angel investors funding intellectual property of a company. So they would buy the IP assets of a company at a pretty low cost. They were basically buying the ability for companies to file patents for that. But the FCA were dragging their feet about regulation, all this, and it took so long and became so expensive that it just wasn't worth us pursuing that angle.
That reminds me of the project we worked on.
And
so we worked on a project, what's it called? Friendly Lending or Friendly Funding. And we wanted, I don't know if anyone's come against, heard of Kiva, KIVA.org, where you can lend chunks of $25 to entrepreneurs around the world. And we wondered, if you can do that around the world, why can't we lend to people in Britain, financially executed entrepreneurs? And when we went to the old FSA, they said, we don't have anything on this. You just go and do what you want. It's fine. Come back and see us. And by the time we went back, the FCA then said, no, we've now got a whole sandbox and you've got to go through this and do this. And what you told us that a few years ago, well, sorry, but you've come back now and these are the rules. And we had to rethink the model. That's an example.
Yeah, and exactly. We were held back so much by the. It seemed crazy that we couldn't do that.
In the end, we decided to work. Actually, we found someone who had set up a very similar organisation. We wanted them to grow that rather than set up lots of organisations. But if any of you are interested, it's called Purple Shoots, and they'll help entrepreneurs from financially executed backgrounds. And there's a second bit to that.
So the second bit is what could government do more? Are you saying, or could to is?
I think So as the IEA, we would argue that maybe the government's not the best solution to a lot of these problems. So how do we get private solutions? How do we get entrepreneurs to come into this sector and find solutions to help out the poor and the needy?
Okay, because I was going to say, if it was how could government do more, is just stay away. So that would really help. I think the structure for entrepreneurship in this country is really good. So we would like to moan, but there's the private sector is really strong. If we have a good startup, there's plenty of money out there for a good startup. It's just excuses people can't find. There's a lot of investment money from angel investment there. So most people moan about the investment side of things, but they're getting it wrong at the beginning. You should be concentrating on customers, not investors. So there's an educational disconnect. But I'm not sure I think the market should be left to its own devices. We have a very good setup. The whole capital gains part just doesn't make sense for entrepreneurs in this country. The way it's set up at the moment, it's not the greatest incentive compared to some other countries. But I think we have a really good ecosystem here. We just needs more belief in our ecosystem.
We're pretty good at startup here. We're not always good at scale up, are we?
We're terrible at scale up.
Yeah. So anyone? Philip, and then anyone else, and then please.
Thanks. I think Sam might have been trying to ask a different question, but if he wasn't trying to ask a different question, I'll ask it on my behalf. So, and that was, we see so many problems in communities, unemployment, poverty, mental health problems, and all the rest of it. And if you go back 140 years, you've got entrepreneurial solutions to those problems, local friendly societies, a whole range of other welfare organizations set up in an entrepreneurial way within the community itself to solve those problems. What are the obstacles to that type of approach today? Is it just that we rely on the welfare state to solve all these problems, or are there other difficulties as well?
Well, we've tried in ways. Crowdpatch was a crowdfunding community interest company that was trying to solve problems using crowdfunding in local communities. So it was called Crowdpatch because you'd have your patch and you'd have a patch leader. So somebody who was gonna run the crowdfunding from there. And I think things can be done at a local community level. I don't know why more isn't. I couldn't make Crowdpatch go in as far as we wanted, but I don't know, at a community level.
Yeah, I think from my own experience, I think one of the things I find is that it's actually quite often he's a local champion rather than an outsider. Secondly, some of them very few of these projects are ideological. So sometimes when I meet a local community project, I'll say, do you have to do ideology? Someone might say they're a local libertarian, or they're a community conservative, or a cooperative socialist. And what's interesting, you've crossed the ideological spectrum with this. But most of them just say, some of them will say, I think the state should do this, but they're not doing it. That's why we had to do it. And others just say, I'm just someone trying to solve a local problem. And a lot of these projects are quite often driven by a local champion. It's very difficult to come in as an outsider to tell people in that community what they should be doing. What I did do, though, when people would say to me, I've got a problem in my local community when I was a member of the European Parliament, I would say to them, I can't just go and pass a law and you'll solve your problems. Let me introduce you to a project here, learn from that and see if you can set up your own thing. And some of the projects they met would say, we'd love to expand into your area. And others would say, look, we'll give you the advice, but we think you should do this. And I think that sort of local level is far more powerful. We want to think, especially when we're in government, that we can do something at the centre to help. But quite often, we just need to make it easy for a lot of these organisations and people to talk to each other from one community to another. So I can facilitate those conversations rather than say, you should copy what's going on that community. A gentleman there, please.
Hi, I'm Krystman. I'm colleague of Simon's at 12 Ronnie's. I just want to lay something up for you, Simon, to stick in the back of the net. You might remember that we came across an infographic from CB Insights, which was the 20 reasons why businesses failed. And that became a huge impetus for us, which I think maybe might be of interest to everybody in the room.
So are you one of the 12 Ronnies?
Yeah.
Right.
And none of us are called Ronnie. There aren't 12 of us, by the way.
How many are there?
Oh, that's a secret. Oh, no. And none of us are called Ronnie.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, right from the beginning, we were very data-driven. So if we're going to try to look at why startups are failing, we want to be able to collect data on all of this. And we're not the only ones that collect data on startup success rates or startup failure rates that we're involved in. So CB Insights was a really good report for us, done a US report done on startup failure. And it listed the 20 reasons, but by far the biggest reason was no customer need right at the top. So, which makes sense, because it all sort of leads to, if there's no customer need, you're not going to make sales. So that was by far the biggest reason, and it's been the foundation of what we teach and what we do. Because so, as a mentor, the most common question by a mile I get asked by a novice founder is, so I'll say, well, how can I help you? How can I? I'm a mentor. How can I help you with your business idea? And they'll say almost invariably, the first question is, I'm looking for investment. So I think, so you're looking for somebody else's hard-earned money to fund your great idea you can't prove anyone wants. And that's essentially what it is. People want money to build something instead of actually finding out, is there a customer need for these things. So all the data from whichever report or whatever angle you come from, it all boils down to customers and audiences, not so much on building things, which is a human thing to do. We like to create. So first thing most of us do when we think of a business idea is we go, well, what are we going to call it? So we're creating a brand without any customers now, if we're thinking what we're going to call it. Is there a domain name for it? We're still thinking about brand. What are we going to build? We're all going in that wrong direction, unfortunately, but led by lots of these reports. So it's not just us collecting data on this. There's lots of organizations.
Does anyone else have any questions, please? Lady there, and then Nigel.
Just a quick question. Does your book cover...
Sorry, introduce yourself. Sorry.
Sorry?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What do you want to... Oh, Christy. I make art. I exhibit it in museums across the country.
Very good.
I found my audience, so to speak. But if I wanted to sell loads of art for loads of money to everyone, what would be the quickest... Does your book cover what the journey would be, how I'd get the data?
Well, to everyone is probably...
That's a joke. That's a joke. Yeah. I mean, basically, to find my audience, say I just want to make... Actually, not really talk about me. All I really wanted to know is, how can I... Does your book cover how to collect that data?
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
It covers how to collect data from audiences that are relevant to what their problems are. Yeah. I mean, that's my area, is the idea validation part of it, not so much the mindset or all the other aspects that we talk about in there that we teach.
And before I go to Nigel, just got to get an idea. Does anyone else want to ask a question at all? So let's do Nigel, then Peter. You sure? He likes to have
It depends whether his phone goes off or I can't.
Yeah, he likes to have the last word, don't you, Nigel? Peter, please.
Good evening. I'm Peter Hinton from Sci Business School in Oxford, where we teach entrepreneurship. And I work with social entrepreneurs in Africa. But the area I'm interested in, going back to the local thing, is there's a group called Nelson Spirit in Norfolk, which combines people in business with young leaders and provides kind of mentorship from one to the other to encourage entrepreneurial activity among the young, probably in Norfolk, which I think is a great initiative. And it also links up with the charity sector as well. So it gives people experience to volunteer, etc., using management skills. And I haven't really seen that anywhere else in the UK, but maybe you're aware of other initiatives like that, which try and encourage entrepreneurship and startups at the local level, which generate more entrepreneurial activity.
Yeah, I haven't seen many at the local level. I've seen ones, so there's a few organizations that do online global level with young entrepreneurs and young innovators, and they bring people from all around the world, and they make it quite community orientated. So I've seen a lot of online stuff like that.
So that is very much in person.
Yeah. But the local in person is so.
And what about some of the universities you work with? Do they do that in their local communities?
Yeah. It's more and more universities are trying to work with businesses in the local communities and become more involved in the community.
Yeah. But do they help only students be entrepreneurial? Do they help local people who maybe not be?
No, they're both.
No, yeah,
both.
One of the conversations we were having in St Mary's, I know we've had this, Nigel, at Buckingham, haven't we, as well?
And I also working with a lot of US universities, and they're a lot more focused on their local communities than we are.
Yeah. Nigel, and do you want to bring us Nigel? No. You'll get your phone out.
There's a phone for us. Number one, tomorrow's company. You should know about. You know Mark Goida. Okay.
I know of, but I think I've never seen them actually doing much at local level.
Oh yeah, in various parts.
So, Nigel, introduce yourself before you go up.
So I'm Nigel Adams. I'm just an old businessman having fun trying to help create more entrepreneurs.
You were at a business.
I'm still there.
A Buckingham Enterprise Innovation Unit.
Officially called the director of the Buckingham Enterprise and Innovation Unit. And in fact, at this moment, I am now the Buckingham Enterprise and Innovation Unit. That's in 2 days a week.
Right.
Now, I think you talked about growth and scaling.
Yeah.
I'm hearing from quite a lot of people who want to try and do something about this. And we have seen a lot, like your things, about posts of doing various things, not coming together. One chap who came to me recently, he certainly knows what it's all about and why the US beats Europe hands down. Have you any thoughts on that?
Well, certainly at the university level, it's really clear why the US wins the growth part of it. So at the startup stage, as I mentioned, we teach the same things. We use the same materials. But as soon as there's a business within the university scene that's looking like it's ready to scale, they have so much alumni funding, it's ridiculous. The philanthropy mindset of the Americans is very different to ours. So there are millions and millions of dollars available for startups in the States if they can show that they're scaling to do with universities. For some reason, even when people haven't been to a particular university, if they're in the area and they want to give back, they've made some money, they'll look to give into the local university. So the money comes from alumni, and they have big departments, even bigger than your entrepreneurial department, just of people fundraising from alumni.
And I know, in fact, one of the hilarious stories I heard, and it might have been true, was some university in the US had got such a big new building that it had 2 entrances, and it had the name of 2 people of the 2 different entrances. And that's actually physically happened, which, it's quite funny. The other, just to put to you, we had to actually introduce in Buckingham a course on selling, because nobody had ever done it in the university before. It's a dirty word, selling. We actually had a course which was called Selling Yourself and Your Business. And not anybody doing it at all.
It's surprising that startups have to go to customers and ask them for money, isn't it? And actually sell to them.
We should be out there selling.
Well, it is the fundamental thing. It's sales first, then build. Sell it, then build it, rather than build it and sell it.
See, the other thing I would add to this is when I was on the Communications and Digital Committee, we went to the West Coast to meet lots of entrepreneurs, and we met some big companies, and we were doing an inquiry on scale up. And what was very interesting was the meeting we had with British entrepreneurs who had moved from Britain to the US. And we asked them why. They said one was capital. But the second thing was the attitude towards success. And they said, in America, people want you to be successful. And they all say, how can I be like that? And they said, over here, sort of, you must be a crook, or it's jealousy. And if you're successful. And just one small anecdote I often tell, and it might not be right now, but when I was a kid, I remember someone telling me that if you have a big car in America and you drove it into another neighborhood, people would all say, how do I earn enough money to get that car? Whereas you did it over here, someone was come and scratch the car. Now that may just be an anecdote, it may not be fair, but I think there's definitely an attitude of being successful and being criticized for being successful.
To me, the more striking thing isn't the difference between Americans' view of success to the British view. It's the view of failure.
Yeah.
So it's a badge of honor. I've got 6 failed companies behind me. We'd be sort of embarrassed, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, some funders.
I'm not a terribly good entrepreneur if I got all these failures. Whereas I was like, 6, but my number 7 is going to be the big one. And people go, well, if you've got 6 failures behind you, you've learned a lot.
Yeah. Don't some investors actually, when they won't find
it's almost a prerequisite. We've been through the whole process and the pain of knowing what it's like to fail. And
One thing you comment about those success and the attitude towards success. I'm afraid in other countries, in some of the countries of the world, it's even worse than in Britain.
Yeah.
And we used to see this where I spent a lot of time in Central and Eastern Europe, and that attitude of people who are winning were hated by the others.
Yeah.
And I've got a joke about how farmer getting extra cows and how about we kill them?
Yeah.
Like that was a mentality in Central and Eastern Europe. And also I found in many of the developing countries that I work with the students from, they are actually frustrated by it. And the Brits are bad enough. Sure. Other places have been worse.
So on that happy note, Simon's got a book that some of you...
I haven't plugged it, have I?
I haven't plugged it. That some of you may want to buy. But otherwise, can we just show our appreciation to Simon for the view? Actually, Lynn. We we will be rotating these meetings. So this one was obviously here. The next one will be at Buckingham in March. We'll send out details to everyone who attended here. If you want to come and listen, it's another medical entrepreneur that we have.
I wouldn't mind coming to that. I love the whole medtech side of things.
As May, who have we got in March?
A magnificent man called Aaron McGill.
Right.
Who's started his first business when he was 15 and was employing his parents by the time he was 17. And he was a millionaire by the time he was 21.
Perfect.
Still going.
So that will be at the Vincent Centre, Buckingham, and then we'll do one at St Mary's, and then we'll do one here. But if hopefully you are on the main list, and we will invite you to future talks. And please do share. If you get an email inviting you, we're very happy for you to share and let other people come along. But we're finding that lots of people are becoming interested in hearing from an entrepreneur story. And if you are an entrepreneur yourself and it's something you want to share, please let us know. We'd be very happy to have you as a guest and to talk about your own experience. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Can I just thank Sam as well for the background work you did for tonight, but also thanks Simon.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thank you.